Nintendo sure has been successful lately. They have the Switch to thank for that. Though they didn't always hit home runs. The Virtual Boy, the Wii U, and several other minor add-ons and peripherals that just didn't click with people. But we knew about all those. What was almost forgotten about was that the 3DS almost joined that group. Today, we'll be taking a look back on how the 3DS almost failed.
Now, I love the 3DS. This system's got me through plenty of downtime throughout the 8+ years it's been around. When it was first revealed to the public at E3 2010, the media, as well as the fans of Nintendo, were hyped for the possibilities of this upcoming handheld. A lot of famous developers were on board and working on upcoming games that surely would bring the system fame. The most prominent title being Kid Icarus Uprising made the 3DS the must-have follow-up to the DS.
Its main gimmick was artificial depth, meaning you can see 3D effects without the use of 3D glasses. And coming from an era where 3D movies were usually uninspired cash grabs shoved down the public's throat, this was a breath of fresh air. Things were really looking up for the 3DS, a promising start with lots of opportunity for developers to really explore the capabilities of a then untapped technology. The lineup of upcoming games were sequels to beloved franchises like Resident Evil, Kingdom Hearts, Animal Crossing, or unique titles that were set to make their debut in the world of gaming. There were even talks about 3D movies coming to the system, with Nintendo apparently partnering up with Netflix.
Even before its release, there were reports from Amazon UK announcing that 3DS was their most pre-ordered system ever at the time. And on the other side of the pond, Nintendo of America said it had doubled the pre-orders of the Wii, with it being the highest of any Nintendo handheld in its history. So let's fast forward to February 26, 2011, and the 3DS sold out in Japan, bringing numbers of over 400,000. And in late March, when the system released nearly at the same time worldwide, an additional 300, 200, and 440,000 were sold in Europe, Australia, and the US respectively. There were reports of it selling 113,000 in the UK, though I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not really sure if that's part of the European figures, but the point is, it was outpacing the original DS when it launched.
So with all that in mind, where did it all go wrong? First off, the price, $250. That's a bit steep compared to the DS's $150 and the fact that the Wii's price cut made it $50 cheaper.
Nintendo, since the days of the NES, have always sold their systems at a profit, unlike Sony and Microsoft, who have always sold their systems at a loss, or at least at the start of the system's life. So I can see why Nintendo saw fit to give it the price point that they did, and while the 3DS did sell incredibly well for the first quarter, its sales plummeted just as badly as the Virtual Boy.
The next big problem the 3DS had were the games. Remember when we had that really promising lineup to look forward to? Yeah, we wouldn't get most of those until a few months down the line. Some even took years to come out. So until then, we had all these launch titles, and, well, to put it in the most professional manner we can,
most of them sucked. Well, let's be fair, you had good ones like Pilot Wings, Nintendo Dogs and Cats, or Ghost Recon Child Wars was pretty good, though I never played it, and there was a decent port of Street Fighter 4, which brings us to our next point, ports. I don't mind a good port, but their problem was there's just too many of them, and they range from really good like Ocarina of Time to...
There were more ports than Los Angeles, and we wouldn't see a genuinely new title until Super Mario 3D Land in November. We did get some good titles trickle down during this time, like Dead or Alive Dimensions, but for the most part, we had to deal with 9 months of crappy license games, lots and lots of shovelware, and... Who's there?
More ports!
Ah! No! Make it stop! Ah!
So the 3DS really didn't pick up traction until the price dropped, and when good games actually started to come out in mid-November. However, that wait and poor sales definitely had consequences. Yeah, Amazon UK says it was the most pre-ordered Nintendo product, but once the sales dried up, there was a little tension between the two companies. Now, take this with a grain of salt, as the now former president of Nintendo of America, Reggie Fils-Aimé, declined to comment. But Amazon at one time and point refused to sell Nintendo hardware for a lot of the 3DS's life, and as well as the Wii U's life. This is to be believed from Nintendo refusing to put the 3DS on sale on Amazon. So, what did Amazon do? They checked their stock for any defects and had to return back to Nintendo out of spite.
Oof, that's a little bit more than a grain of salt. That's the Dead Sea level of salt.
Now we really can't confirm nor deny the story, but we can say for sure, Amazon did not stock Nintendo hardware for years.
But that's an external problem. At Nintendo of Japan, the late president Satoru Iwata had to answer for a lot of the financial problems. We all know the story about how he and the board of directors took a 50% pay cut in order to prevent layoffs. But that wasn't the only financial crisis. Every other system, like the Wii and the original DS, went under-projected, selling far less than expected. At the same time this was happening, another company was gaining massive traction. Believe it or not, it was Apple. Say what you want about them, but they are successful. For better or for worse. In 2011 alone, the iPhones doubled their previous sales, and other smart devices were gaining popularity. Mobile gaming was really taking off. Again, for better or for worse. When you weren't playing the 100 other clones of Angry Birds or Clash of Clans, you were enjoying some pretty decent independent titles. And at a fraction of the price compared to a full retail game, people were flocking towards the casual market.
The other problem the 3DS faced was a lack of innovation with the 3D. You know, the thing the system is built around. Earlier we mentioned Netflix was going to partner up with Nintendo to bring us 3D movies. Yeah, it looks like that was misinformation. We did get Netflix, just without the 3D movies. But let's both be honest here, did you really want to watch movies on such a tiny screen? Plus, some games didn't utilize the 3D effects. One example is Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor Overclocked. Another port! A port of a 2-year-old DS game that barely had any 3D. The game was played entirely on the bottom screen, where you couldn't use the 3D function. Now that I think about it, some of the best games on the 3DS right now are games that don't use 3D all that much.
Plus, there were also complaints of the 3D causing eye strain and killing the battery life. 3 hours is not a good time for a handheld.
So after all of that, what made the 3DS not fail? Well, for starters, the price cuts certainly helped a lot, with the sales jumping 260% in the first week and the system selling 235,000 units in the US alone that August. Those sales made it sell far better than the DS did in its first year, and considering how successful the original DS was, that's saying something. But Nintendo did catch some flack for this. Some fans felt they spent money they didn't need to and were betrayed. So Nintendo doubled down by introducing the Ambassador program that gave people who bought the original $250 3DS 10 free NES games and 10 free GBA games.
The other factor is more obvious. We got better games. We were still getting ports like Star Fox 64. But Super Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7 hit shelves just in time for the holidays. In hindsight, those two games really saved the 3DS. Not only were they fun games, but they were also some of the few games that showcased the 3D to an effective degree, especially Super Mario 3D Land. 2012 was an interesting year for Nintendo. On the one hand, the 3DS library was expanding with some truly stellar titles like the previously promised Kid Icarus Uprising, Zero Escape, Virtue's Last Reward, and Metal Gear Solid 3D. Don't. I know what you're gonna do. Don't.
On the other hand, the aftermath of the 3DS was a pretty big loss for Nintendo. In fact, let's not mince words here. It was the worst fiscal year the company had ever faced in its entire lifetime. At the time of writing, the 3DS has sold about 75 million units, and while those numbers are just below the other Nintendo handhelds, that doesn't mean it's any less deserving of attention.
Through all its faults, the 3DS is a true underdog. It had a rocky and uncertain beginning, but after it jumped a few hurdles and ran the distance, it proved itself to be one of the great handhelds of Nintendo's history. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. We wanted to cover something a little different while our next project is being worked on. Tell us in the comments below what your favorite 3DS game was. You can also hit us up on our Twitter, Facebook, and other social media junk in the description below.
So until next time everyone, take care and thanks for all the support.